good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining this panel. I'm going to put my video on. Okay, hope you can see me. So I'm Marie-Caroline Baer, in charge of our AI offering at Capgemini Invent. And today I will have with me three presenters to discuss about human agency and oversight. David Grusson, with the founder of Ethic AI, and we'll talk about AI in healthcare. Paul Lombard, who has developed our own internal AI playbook, and Renate Wolters. We will present how she applied human oversight in a specific project. Next slide, Farah. Yeah.
So yeah, before we jump into the session, human agency and oversight, let's start with a quick survey. Sorry. How can I? Okay, now. A quick survey. How do you feel about the following question? Who should be responsible for supervising AI's impact? So to participate in the survey, simply scan the QR code you see here or go to www.menti.com. Insert the code 5767602 and choose your answer.
Okay.
All right. Let's go back. I think looks, it's clear.
Yes, interesting. We will see, and we can discuss that with our speakers today. But your answers are quite interesting. Okay, so I will do a very short introduction because I guess that we are running late. So maybe if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so as an introduction on human agency and oversight, I wanted to share with you two figures which come from our latest research on AI and ethics that is based on more than 900 executive interviews, either in large corporations or in public services. What we found is that there is still a very long way to go to really oversee AI. Actually, on the left side, you see that only 22% of the organizations are saying that they maintain significant human oversight over AI systems. And 22% definitely is not a very high score. At the same time, we have only a bit more than half of the executives interviewed who confirm that their organization is providing clear options to the users so that they can report issues when they face automated decisions that they dislike or that they don't understand. So this is more than half. It's still low. It's an increase since our last study, which was last year. It was a 47%. So there is an increase, but still a long way to go. Next slide. Okay, so I think most of you are really familiar with the regulations, the guidelines, and the initiatives that are taken at the international level. We have two of them who are really guiding our work. The first one is the EU one with the ethics guidelines for trustworthy artificial intelligence. It is based on 7 key principles, and as you can see, human agency and oversight is one of these key pillars. At OECD level, we have, it's not 7, but it's 5 principles, and one of them is human-centered values and fairness, which is also about how human and AI interact and how human can keep control on AI. In both cases, there is a accountability topic that you see, which is highly linked to this AI supervision. So this is something which is also tackled by our government and international bodies. On the ground, what are the approaches to enhance human agency and oversight? I'm just giving there a few ideas, and it will be interesting to have the discussion with our experts, but here are some thoughts. First, we can make sure that we include human intervention in AI-driven decision-making processes. And to be able to intervene, the human needs to know how to explain AI outputs. So this has to be managed with explainability tools, and in some separate session, we discuss also this topic of explainability, which is key to make sure that a human can keep control. Another guideline is definitely to develop information and education, and for instance, develop online courses, develop platforms talking about AI and what can be done, what can't, and why we need to supervise it. You can also create research groups on AI-human cooperation, and we will see a few examples. And then it is absolutely important to make the respect of fundamental rights and ethical principles legally binding in AI application, and some countries did this. And then stimulate the participation of the civil society in the drafting of AI framework, which can come from various think tanks or public discussions organized at country level. So these are a few examples. If we go on the next slide, a few examples illustrating what I just mentioned. So in the US, there is a strategic plan which has been recently updated and which insists on the complementary nature of humans and of AI systems. In Japan, something quite similar, even a bit different, of course, which is about really making sure that we keep human dignity and individual autonomy in all ways. In Netherlands, it is a bit more strict, I would say. There is a guideline really to make sure that the human always control and has the possibilities to apply control on AI applications. Next slide. Okay. In Canada, there is a directive on automated decision making, and they want to ensure that there is a process to obtain all appropriate level of approvals prior to producing such scoring or such decisions. So this is even more precise, I would say. Then there is the Finland AI strategy report, which is also available, which is more recent, and which is in favor of interactive online courses and making sure that there is a spread of awareness. I've got an echo. Farah, sorry, can you cut the sound of... Thank you. And last, we have the example of Estonia was funded 3 different research groups, and one of these 3 groups is under cooperation between AI and human also. So all these initiatives are illustration of what can be done and how we should engage on these topics. And now I will.
Hi.
I was hoping, David, that you were connected. So if you are, that's great.
I've been able at last to overcome the technical hindrances, but thank you so much for your invitation for this AI for Good event. Thank you, Marie-Caroline. I would just ask you, if you please, to share my slides, if you're able to do so. Just to give you in 10 minutes maximum an overview of what is taking place here in France within the context of the bioethics law examination process. And we enacted this, you can go to the next slide, this new principle, Algorithmic Human Warranty, ALUWA, which could be seen as a standard, paving the way for AI all along the process that we all know to devise AI algorithms. We need to go in the first place down to the mine. If you've watched, like me, The Lord of the Rings, you know that there are 2 levels of mines. The first one, the most terrible, is Mordor with paper archives. We need to digitize all that for the healthcare system. That's what I'm talking about, AI applying to healthcare. And then you need to go to the second mine level, probably less terrible one, which is the Moria, in which you've got all these digitized files, but not qualified. And then you need to go to go along the way to qualify data in order to pre-qualify them and then to broker them in order to develop research programs and also to train algorithms, which could be divided into 2 categories, algorithms for medical diagnosis and algorithms for managing the system. So the human warranty principle has to be applied all along the way. Algorithmic human warranty, it has also to do with the development of nationals or European healthcare data hubs in order to develop algorithms within both ethical and legal frameworks, such as the GDPR. Let's go to the next slide. And this ALUA principle has 2 ways of being implemented. The first one, it's on the next slide, is information of patients. The patient has to be informed that there is a use of an algorithm during the caring of the patient, first part of the algorithmic human warranty. And the second one is human warranty by itself, which has to do, that is what the European Commission calls human oversight in the white paper that has been dealt with earlier on. And this human oversight principle, I will give you applied cases for that, but I think that there is a problem with the PPT. But just let me explain it to you in a nutshell. What is actually human warranty in very practical terms? We developed with the French Union of Dental. You can go forward. It was just a reminder of the fact that this human warranty principle comes from an anticipation work, a book I released 2 years ago, dealing with what could an AI do with pandemics. I'm sorry for this COVID-19 context. I have nothing to do with it, but all my support to the healthcare professionals. But within this very critical context, we can easily feel and sense, whatever the country in which we could be, that there is a need for human supervision of all the algorithms involved in data tracking, COVID-19 diagnosis, and managing of the crisis response. Let's go forward, because what we have to say is that we all feel that this has come to reality right now. When I issued this fiction, I imagined an AI which was in charge of devising a vaccine and the first case of an automated vaccine devising has occurred in 2019 with an Australian team. It's a paper that has been issued in 2019 on seasonal flu vaccine. And as you might know, first AI devised also an antibiotic. It's an MIT releasing at the beginning of March 2020. Let's go forward. I told you that this human warranted principle has been enacted within this bioethics law examination proceedings. You can go on with two levels of application of this human warranty in the draft Article 11. And this notion has been re-endorsed by the EU Commission white paper on AI and also by the WHO recommendation on AI that will be released by the end of this year. So two levels of application of human warranty: information of patient on the use of AI, and warranty, human warranty college associating professionals, patients, and innovators in AI. You can go forward. I told you about that. Patients' information on the use of AI. As you understand, it's not a specific consent of AI, but it's an information on the use of AI while requesting a much more, a larger consent of the patient on the protocol of caring, but no consent specifically on AI. You need to inform the patients. It's an enlargement of the duty of information of the professional. You can go forward. Maybe 2 slides ahead in order to explain that to you in an example. You can go on. As you see, there is a need for a human warranty traceability, which applies during real life of the algorithms. You need to keep the proof of traceability that a human oversight of the algorithm occurs all along the way of the real life of the algorithm. Let's go forward. And let me give you an example of applied algorithmic human warranty. First example is on the next slide. It's an experimentation carried under the scrutiny of the French Union of Dental Doctors with this AI medical tool devised by Dental Monitoring, a French startup, and which is used for dental caring within the context of elderly caring hospitals. And we integrated human warranty with a dental doctor within the staff of the startup, and afterwards with a human warranty college, reviewing 30 cases every 3 months already treated by AI. And there is a supervision by dental doctors, who are vested with this mission by the Union of Dental Doctors. So you can see quite crystal clear a human oversight all along the way by an external body called a human warranty college. So it's a very important tool for enhancing trust in the AI medical device. The second case is you can go on the next on the slide afterwards. Is sometimes you need to operate human warranties through specific standards for more specific data, more maybe sensitive data such as genomic data. We issued this draft standard with the Imagine University Hospital applying to genomic data. You can go on the next slide. The standard is set up all through the notion of a perimeter of sensitivity, in which you can operate very sophisticated AI proceedings such as machine learning or deep learning, but you need to get an IT more secure perimeter of sensitivity to do so in order to protect all genomic data. You can go forward and you will see that what we did with Ethic AI on that project is also within the framework of a national institute on AI called l'Institut 3IA Prairie. And the last case, the third one, and I will conclude by that, is the next slide and final one, is the fact that you can, in some cases, operate human warranty, algorithmic human warranty, under the aegis of representatives of specific medical professions. That's what the French radiologists did through the devising of Dream Francia, which is a gathering of all the French radiologists, both hospital operating in hospitals and non-hospital radiologists, and they operate this body, which is vested with the mission of devising specific standards for radiology, issuing statements on what is the ethical use of AI in this very specific medical activity, and then you have duplication of that in ER caring, emergency caring, and biology. So there are reasons to be optimistic. Positive regulation and algorithmic human warranty tend to become trendy, both at a national and probably much more important at a European and international level. So there is no time to waste if we want to spread these ethical AI tools. Thank you for this attention. And there is need to strike a balance between regulating and nurturing innovation. That's the key word for me.
Paul, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, David. It's great that you joined. I just was thinking about how to start and how to jump in.
Sorry, I was speaking without the sound. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, so hello out in the world. My name is Paul. I'm an engagement manager, mainly focused on the automotive sector in the last 8 years. And last year I had the chance to be part of a team which created a playbook to consider the ethical dimension in projects. So we now heard a lot about principles, guidelines, frameworks. But at the end, currently, we still have the majority of AI projects done by people with hands. And now I would like to shift your perspective on onto a kind of AI program. Just imagine you are starting now an AI program within your organization, your department, and you have a few people, and you would like to make sure that everything kind of goes right, and you are able to consider the ethical dimension within your program. So this was the motivation, the setup, and I will now show you our kind of pitch video internally, just to give you an idea what we created. So thank you, Farah, for sharing this this video. So maybe to reduce a bit, to be a bit faster in time, what we created there is a kind of journey to journey for people, for kind of project members or departments to consider the ethical dimension. And we created it first internally because we have some very important values for us as a company, and we wanted to make sure that our values are considered in every kind of action we do in every AI project. On the other side, we are we consider us as a European company, and the EU Commission, as I think was mentioned earlier, announced some principles as well. And so this is now giving us a framework how to consider our view on values, the governmental view, and is creating a space for humans to constantly consider AI elements. And the playbook consists more or less of 3 phases, which is based on design thinking approach. And then it offers some exercises which can be executed, for example, in a kickoff event of 1 of 3 days, to consider or to playfully consider these ethical questions, to point out risks which you can already see at the beginning. And then afterwards, it's going to change into a kind of iterative approach where you always are asking similar questions to yourself as a team or department, and to make sure that you are still considering the right things, the right questions when it comes to ethics within an AI program. So this is, I would say, the short description. I'm really looking forward to dive deeper in the question section at the end of this breakout. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
We have a few questions. Thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation. We are late, but I hope we can hear you, Renate. I know you are on your phone, probably. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, just it was yeah, last minute I've been able to join with the breakout rooms.
Great.
So just in time. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a bit about human agency and how we've done that in a project called FARM. So before I dive into the approach we actually use, I'm going to tell you just a bit about the context we worked in. So as most of you know, have heard of, it's a production paradox. It simply says, how can we make sure that we still have enough food in 2050 for 10 billion people? As you might know, 70% of all our food worldwide now comes from smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers, have been very difficult for them to produce enough to feed themselves and to make enough profits. Therefore, that leads to a lot of smallholder farmers being more inclined to changing jobs, such as Uber drivers. Well, with Project Farm, we've been looking at how can we support these farmers on an international scale to help produce more. Can I have the next slide, please? So, and click one more click, please. Yes. So, no, one back. Yes. So what I've been trying to say as well, we help these farmers from perspective that we are engineers, networkers, but most of all, we don't try to be farmers. We're not trying to be to make the decisions for them. And I think that's a very important start of the approach we've been taking. Next slide, please. So our approach is basically that we build on to existing local relationships and networks. That means, to give you an example, we're currently launching in India, where we collaborate with 2 local parties that are either one of them is a farmer corporation and the other one is an NGO actually helping and training farmers. Then what we do to build a technical side in helping these farmers, our platform, is that we actually work together with, in this case, people from India, Capgemini India, to build it. And then what we do as well, because everything is so should be context specific, is that we ask those NGOs and local parties we work with, what technologies have you seen in your field where you're the expert that actually are working? So one of them is, for example, shown us a bookkeeping tool that they would like to use. Another one is more training or gamification. So we take those proven technologies, we add them onto the farm platform to facilitate the access for farmers and to be able to scale it. Thirdly, it's important to actually scale it outside of countries like India, but to multiple countries as we work in an ecosystem. And in our ecosystem consists out of financiers, these NGOs, farmers themselves, and farming corporations and local NGOs. And with them together, it's a constant dialogue on how do we resolve the issues that we see specifically for there. If you could take me to the next slide. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges we've seen, and I do realize I haven't talked too much about what it is we actually do, but we have a farm as a platform in which we facilitate already existing solutions and use AI to help decision making on things like yield, but also weather detection to avoid locusts or harvest loss because of storms. So we do that with one of the challenges and answers we need to find, and that's not the technical side, is actually how do we strengthen our local networks? So what local actors should become of a network, which partners with existing solutions can collaborate on the farm platform? And then lastly, how do we translate local improvement to global success? And this is actually one of the most difficult things we're dealing with. So a couple weeks ago, we have presented a farm on good UN X Prize stage. And now we actually raised the questions to companies like, well, the UN themselves, but also Danone, and a couple weeks ago to Bayer. What opportunities do you see from a global perspective that local improvement can give you? And that's the most critical thing we're working on right now. So how do we translate local governance and local agency to the global scale we want to reach? If you could give me the next slide. Yeah, this is just an example of how we work in that ecosystem. So we've identified, to do that, we've identified a role, and feel free to not read all of it, to identify the role and what's in it for all the partners involved. So we can actually collaborate, and it's very transparent who needs what and who brings what. Could you take me to the next one? Oh, okay. One has been cut off. So we bring in this ecosystem, we bring together what's necessary, and we have identified how farmers will use these tools and how we adopt them, which is through the local agents. Lastly, what I want to give as well is that throughout all these speeches, there's so many amazing possibilities we can do, but I do think that implementing anything technical in any context first requires actually having a discussion with the local partners available and the end users, and giving end users also the ownership of their own data. And that's what that's one of the reasons and the core foundations of FARM. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Renate. So we have a few minutes left because we have postponed the next session for everyone. So I've seen a number of questions and especially some reaction to the poll. I don't know, Farah, if you can show the results of the poll on whom should supervise the AI oversight. Do you have this one?
1 second.
From the beginning, the results?
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask our expert and maybe ask that to David. What's your view on this? Who should be responsible? And we have a question of someone saying that it's a bit weird that we don't have so many answers on the AI ethicist. Do you have what's your view?
It's a very striking poll. I would say it suggests, and that's my opinion, as you probably understood, that the human warranty of AI is a matter for all of us, both devisers of algorithms, but also users. And that is to say, for medical AI, we need to set up human warranty collects, gathering IT engineers implied in the devising of the algorithm, and then doctors, and then patients. I'm quite surprised, I have to say, by the level of trust for governmental supervision. I would say that I agree with that if it has to do with the enactment of bodies of legislation, which endorse this idea of AI positive regulation, not over regulation, otherwise you would block innovation, but AI positive regulation, that's the very purpose of the draft Article 11 of the French bioethics law re-examination.
Yeah, thank you. Farah, can I still take a few questions, or do we need to go to the last poll first?
We still have time for questions.
Okay, we still have time for questions. Yeah. Okay, so given the discussions, I was wondering how you make sure that you can balance human oversight and the respect for people with the necessity to put some progress on AI and what we called previously the race for AI. What is the right balance and how to find and reach this balance?
If I would say just a word, and maybe the colleagues would go on with other aspects of the issue, that as we stated with the French National Council for Ethics in its 129 opinion, it's accessible through the web. The first ethical risk would be to block the development of AI if we take as a prerequisite the fact that we are compliant with legal harsh bodies of legislation, just like the GDPR. The first step is not to block the development of AI within the GDPR context, and then you have to use a positive regulation standard such as human warranty. But the main ethical stake is our trend, and maybe more in France than in other countries, to over-regulate things. We have the highest level of data protection in the world in France and in Europe.
Yeah. Thank you. Renate, do you have any, or Paul, and any other opinion on that? Or maybe given your presentations, maybe Renate, you can answer to how we could make sure that you keep this human agency when you are scaling up, because you presented to us how you did that on the ground with the first users of your projects. How to ensure that it's still the case when you scale up?
Yes, thank you. I think that's a good question. It is one of the biggest challenges I think that organizations phase. So in the beginning, when you start, it's quite easy to keep that conversation, to keep that discussion and dialogue going, and to keep a very close eye on a human agency. However, once you scale up, at some point it becomes simply too many parties to all continue the dialogue with, and to ensure that the decision making stays with the human, right? So what we do, and that's actually the entire main message of my presentation, is to use networks. So we, at some point, we're getting to train-the-trainer concept, where we train people on site, NGOs and other partners we're working with, to how do you keep that dialogue going? How do you make sure that farmers, in our case, know that there's still the decision-making power? And how do you guide these farmers from an actual content point of view, which is not us, because we're not farmers? How do you put these experts into place to guide the farmers how to use the technical tools to make decisions for themselves? So to keep emphasizing on that, it's a facilitating tool to make more argumented decisions, and to make sure that in your trainer efforts, you actually maintain that message. And you do that's one thing we do as well, is that we do regular checkups with the local partners, as a review or feedback getting, like, did you understand? How did you perceive the training?
Thank you. Thank you. I think we still have time for one or two questions. I've seen a question on the fact that meaningful oversight and supervision over AI could be achieved only by systems with similar parameters, e.g. robots chasing robots. What's your view on the toolkit for supervision? Should it be some other AI tools, or should it be different?
If Paul doesn't have a comment on that, I would say that you need to mix the two assets. The first principle is human oversight, human supervision. That's the goal to be achieved, but you need to mix it sometimes with algorithmic tools. As you know, I'm healthcare manager for Jouve, it's a French algorithmic group, and we devise AI tools to devise some digital onboarding AI vectors for patients, for hospitals. And we, as we propose, we developed human warranty tools, mixing algorithms of supervisions, but also actual human supervision. And that's, for my part, the highest way of applying human warranty, because you need to combine the two aspects. But the first movement is endorsing human warranty in order to regulate positively all these algorithms.
Yeah, thank you, David. A last one, we discussed some international regulators guidelines. Paul, this one is for you, because you presented our overall playbook. How can we ensure that all these guidelines, which are decided at a global level, can in the end become some actual behaviors at individual level? Any trick for this?
Yeah, so the trick is to create the awareness in every individual, which is kind of playing a role within an AI program initiative, however. So, and the core intention of this playbook is to kind of open up our minds that ethical consideration is a topic which we have to constantly follow up on. And so this is the key. So we are still humans, we can still think about new things and kind of question if, for example, a bias system is still doing a proper job or not. Because we will have a future where current bias systems, for example, will not work. And so that's why it's about open up our minds. And the playbook is giving a kind of a journey how we can open up our minds to consider the ethical consideration or dimension.
Yeah, thank you very much.